It's going to be very scientific today. We're going to be going over the different parts of the skull, where stuff aligns, and how that looks underneath the face, that sort of thing. So skulls. Skulls can be broken down into multiple anatomical parts. So a lot of people are like, oh, it's a skull. The skull is like the umbrella term, right? It's kind of like going like, oh, there's the body, but there's different parts of the body. There's your arms, there's your legs, that kind of thing, right? Skulls can be broken down as well. There are different parts of skulls that can be broken down into multiple anatomical parts, and understanding their structure allows for a better drawn face. So understanding where bone goes on the face, understanding where the tougher parts of the face are, will allow you to draw everything else because you know what's going on underneath it. How quickly can I draw a skull? The skull, the cranium, the back circle here is not a circle. It's an elongated oval. So we're going to start with the lateral view right now, the lateral on the left of the face. To be clear, we are talking about skulls, not specifically like teeth or specific things like that. We are very heavily focusing on the skull itself. This actually should be larger. So this is where the ear canal would start right here. So if you feel your ear, it's like squishy, right? And that's because the ear is not made of bone, it's made of cartilage. So it actually is not part of the skull at all. Okay, all right, okay. This is why I am not a scientific artist, because I'm choosing to ignore a lot of things. This should be higher. Okay, I did it from a profile view first. The profile view or the lateral view. Artist's term, it's a profile view. Scientific term, it's the lateral. We are going to be focusing on landmarks first. And your landmarks are very, very important when it comes to drawing skulls, because then by this point now you'll be able to understand what is underneath the skin, so that what's on top of the skin becomes easier to draw. It's better to understand what's going on underneath, like your skin and your flesh and whatever, because your bones are your hardest landmarks, right? And it is much, much easier to work with it this way. So notice the shape of the skull. Notice where the mandible starts. The mandible begins directly halfway through the head. So if you're ever drawing your jaw, if you draw that first circle, bring the face down, your jaw will start halfway through that circle, because our jaw is built like this, or the mandible is directly located in the center of the cranium right here. So you can think of it that way. And notice that the cranium is a big long oval. The mandible stops about halfway through here. So if you draw your head and your chin ends all the way back here, and you're only giving yourself that much left room, not that much room left for the rest of your face, then you've drawn your head too small. Never forget the cranium. Our cranium is huge just because it fits our brain. We need to make sure that our brain fits inside of here, and our brain doesn't like reach all the way to the edges here. Our brain is more like that, right? It's floating in there. So remember, halfway through, mandible starts there. Right here is the opening for the ear canal. Your ear would go right here. So your ear is directly attached to the mandible. So not only is your mandible halfway through your cranium, your ear is as well. If you draw it so you have a person from the side here and your ear is all the way back here, or like if you draw in your chin and it's like this and your ear is kind of like that, or if it's like right here or whatever, right? It shouldn't be. If you have your face, again, halfway through the cranium, your ear will start right here. So it will also be aligned with this center line of the side of the face. Landmarks that I have talked about so far is that the mandible is halfway through the cranium and that the ear canal aligns with the end of the mandible. So this is the ear canal right here. It is a hole. Notice as well, the jawline is on a slant. The mandible is slanted. But when we draw in our lips, remember that we shouldn't have everything on this side be completely flat. We want to bring that out because the teeth protrude from the head, and that will also help make the lips protrude from the head as well. Only the mandible moves on a hinge joint. So right here, it's a hinge, right? So it's kind of like there's a thing here. Oh, actually, I can just show you. There's a hinge joint right there, and it only moves from that specific spot. So if you're drawing somebody's opening their mouth, it will only open from that specific point. That hinge moves it up and down. The top of the head will not move the same way the mandible will move. But notice as well that the angle of the mandible goes backwards. It will open up much wider, so you need that squash and stretch within your face to make sure that it looks proper. Let's do some labeling right now. Yes, that's the thing that I should have done first. So this one right down here, we've already been talking about it. This is the mandible, or the jaw. Right here is the, technically, okay, so the real term is the external acoustic meatus. I'm gonna call it the ear canal. Back here, it's kind of divided like here-ish. You can call this bone the parietal bone, and this takes up the majority of the back half of the face. The one right here, this entire forehead bit, this is the frontal bone. Right here, this little piece, this is the nasal bone. And this right here, this little piece, this is the zygomatic. So these are the important ones. You don't really need to know much else for now. So I'm gonna draw the frontal view, so then we can get more landmarks. Okay, so let's label these bones again. This one right here is the nasal bone. This is the zygomatic, the nasal, the zygomatic, also known as the cheekbones, yes. This one down here, this is the mandible, this one right here. It goes all the way back to the head, so it doesn't actually stop right here, so that's why we have the lateral view as well, so you can see that. This is the frontal, this one is the maxilla. So these are the important parts, the important bones that you're gonna need if you want to think about anatomy in this way. The zygomatic bones, very, very important. What you can do for me, touch your cheeks, now go upwards, underneath your eyes. If you feel that hard bone kind of right underneath your eyes, that is your zygomatic bone right there. This is your cheekbone. This is a protruding plane of the face and is important for lighting. Is it so sharp it feels more rounded? That's because of the layers of fat and skin that we have on top. Underneath it, this little section right here, empty portion between, I'm just gonna call it the zygo, and mandible is the cheek. So this section right here, that's where your cheeks are, because there's no bone between your mandible and your zygomatic. However, teeth get in the way. Sink in this area for a more emaciated look. So if you want somebody to look like they haven't eaten in a while, if you want somebody to look weirdly thin or sickly, sinking in the cheek between the zygomatic and the mandible is a fun strategy that you can do. Frontal bone is 1/3 of the skull. Don't shrink it. Notice right here, the frontal bone is 1, 2, 3. It is 1/3 of the entire skull. If you have like your eyes all the way up here and there's just like this tiny little bit of forehead left, you haven't left yourself enough room. Your forehead's a lot bigger than you think. So the frontal bone is 1/3 of the skull, so don't shrink it. Don't shrink your forehead. Frontal bone protrudes, so it's like a hood over the eyes. So the frontal bone right here, your brow bone is what they call it, but it is technically just a piece of the frontal bone. It does protrude, it comes out like this, so it creates a hood over your eye sockets. That is what we want to think about when we are looking at skulls, different parts of them, the landmarks. So when we have the skull with its little mouth open, so I demoed it earlier, when the mouth opens up, it is on a hinge. The mandible, if it opens up, then it'll open up like this. So if we have our mandible open, if we were to draw somebody over that, so let's say we've just got a person, this comes down here, the nose is like this. The nose is also made of cartilage, so it is not a bone. There is a nasal bone, and the eyebrow would be right here, the ear would be right here.
If you'd like to support the channel and the creation of free arts education, become a member on Patreon.
So if we've got a person looking from the side like this, when the mandible moves, the bottom of the face will move and stretch as well. Again, take this mandible, put it on that hinge joint, and just open it up. The jaw goes back and the mouth like stretches up, it opens. But our mandible will stretch open. This is what we call squash and stretch. So don't forget that the jaw extends when we open up our mouths, right? It doesn't stay the same width. If this is the length when it is opened, it's a lot longer than when it's closed. So we want to make sure that we are opening that jaw nice and wide. So same deal here. If we've got like this person facing forwards, from the front, this is going to be a little bit trickier because even though the mandible is opening, it is opening and hinging backwards. So what you have to do is you have to approximate for that. So your lower jaw will open up so you can see the back points of the teeth. You can see your molars, right? It's a curve. Your mandible is curved. And that will be represented by how many of your teeth you can see. I'm not going to bother counting them. So it opens backwards like that. What this looks like as a face from the front. So if we've got the face looking forwards like this, we've got this guy here. When the mouth opens, the jaw will hinge open. Chin will open up wider. So don't forget your teeth. Your teeth are very, very important.
Join a virtual class to learn live from our professional artists. Get creative assignments, individual guidance, and real-time feedback on your artwork. Start today and level up your practice. If you learned something new, like and share this with a fellow art nerd. If you love receiving quality and free arts education, subscribe. Here's a couple other videos you can check out next.